Sweet. Is it good? All right, we're good. How's everybody doing? Can you guys hear me okay? Nope, not on. Says it's not on. There we go. That sounds better.
I guess the guy decided tomorrow.
Okay, there we go. How's everybody doing? Appreciate you coming out tonight. We have a guest here tonight to kick us off. We've got Mr. Darrell Booker here, my new friend. His mom is Sarah Elmore, is that right? And you go to Jefferson, and you're in the 8th grade, right? 4th grade. I'm just messing with him. So he's gonna get us kicked off here. So there you go, sir. Now take your hands out of your pockets. Sit up there and go loud now.
I bring this meeting to order.
Give it a good smack.
All right.
All righty. All right, so let's call the roll.
Matthews.
Here.
Weaver.
Here.
Flood.
Here.
Bolt.
Here.
Rutherford.
Here.
Seahorn.
Here.
Salter.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All righty, very good. So let's do our invocation. Commissioner Flood's going to do that for us tonight.
Please pray with me. Father God, we thank you for today. We thank you for just another day, God, to be about the business of the city of Shawnee. God, I pray that the words spoken tonight, God, that they be part of your design and will for us in this city. God, thank you for the amazing men and women that work so hard to make this one of the best cities ever. God, we love you and praise you. See you in your son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. If you would, join me in the flag salute. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All righty. I'm not used to you guys being so far back. Number one, citizens' participation. So same rules as always, 3-minute limit per person, 12 minutes per topic. We will not respond to you. That's not us being rude. That's just our rules, but I promise you we are listening. We have 2 folks that have signed up. Ken Stafford is first, so I'd welcome you to come on forward, Ken. Good seeing you. Absolutely. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, my name is Ken Stafford. I had a piece of property up for rezoning on the corner of Kennedy and Benedict Street. It went before the Planning Commission on September 2nd. The Planning Commission approved the rezoning of the property on a 4-to-1 vote. We then came before the City Commission, but the Commission had to defer action on the item because the meeting had not been properly posted. So they told me I had to go back to the Planning Commission, and the next meeting date was October 7th. So I went to that meeting, and of course it was canceled. There was no one there, but there was a posting outside that said the meeting had been canceled. So I called the planning department, and the planning department told me that it would be taken up at the next meeting, which would be November 4th. So I showed up here again on November 4th, and I'm only then told that there was a special call meeting on September 17th. Even though I wasn't notified of the special call meeting. At that meeting, the planning department votes to reverse their decision and votes to deny the rezoning on a 3-to-2 vote. So then it comes back to the City Commission on September 21st, and of course I'm not here because I had no knowledge of any of it. Staff made a recommendation to this commission to deny the rezoning and said the area was spot zoned and should go back to, I believe, R1 low density residential. Now, the city of Shawnee spent a lot of money on a comprehensive plan, and So I'm somewhat puzzled as to why staff would make a recommendation that contradicts the comp plan. So I'm asking if y'all get a chance, if you would look on page 89 of the comprehensive plan, and I don't have a copy of it, you'll see that all the property on Benedict Street from Kennedy to Kickapoo is designated as commercial property. If you look on page 96, the two pictures that illustrate low-intensity commercial actually have C3 zonings. If you look at all of the land use map, all of the property in Shawnee that's designated low-intensity commercial actually have C3 zonings. So I'm puzzled as to which way we're going on this thing. I would hope the commission would rehear the zoning of the property since it is supported by the comp plan. I would also hope you would adopt a policy in which applicants must be notified anytime there's a special call meeting or anytime they're on the agenda so they can be present. And your consideration would be greatly appreciated. And thank you for what you do. Thanks a bunch.
Thank you very much. Okay, next up is Rob Morris. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Okay, good evening, guys. This is gonna sting a little bit, but we'll get through it. For tonight's deal that's on the agenda for this Shawnee Ford and creating a task force to give out the CARES money, I think the program will be very good, but it still has some issues, even as it is right now. One is an anonymous task force handing out taxpayer dollars. That don't fly at all. Next is I'd like an explanation in detail of the exact rubric that will be used. Not what it might be, but what it is. If you're going to ask for money, you should have things done to be able to come up here and ask for money. As far as the money from Shawnee goes, if we were to contribute, say, $100,000, I think $80,000 should stay in Shawnee, period. And $20,000 can go to the county because we are the county seat. We do have an obligation to the county being the county seat. So I think there's a little bit of a compromise to be made there. But 80% of that money needs to be spent in Shawnee, and zero money from any of the other towns in Pottawatomie County need to be spent outside of their city limits. That's what the county money's for, and that's what the $20,000 given that we would give would go for. So we want to make sure that rural Pot County is not left out in any way. Also, what's done if a plan is not followed through with after they get the money? I'd like to see a little bit of an explanation as to what happens. Do we go back after the money, or do we just say, oh, well, we tried, we gave them $5,000, they didn't follow through with the plan, no big deal. Well, it's taxpayer money, it is a big deal. Next we have is back to Seth again. Where's the minutes at? Where's the minutes of the meetings? Why is it not under the Open Meeting Act? From a data request, I have quarterly direct deposits into Seth's bank account from the city of Shawnee, which means we directly pay them money. Every bit of that should be Open Meeting Act. Why is the city money spent on Shawnee stock when the contract clearly stated monies were limited to Trail Days, Boo-on Bell, and Christmas Parade? There's receipts from that same request that show that we paid for the singers, and we paid, and it says Shawnee stock on it. And I'm not against Shawnee stock, I'm not against Seth. I would like both of them to continue, but I want it done right. Lastly, for that one, why was the contract abruptly changed after a resignation from the Seth board by an individual on the city commission? That's one person who should be able to answer these questions when it pertains to Seth. You sat on the board, you were there when the contract was there, you didn't vote on it here, there was an abstention, but you know what it is. So now we need an explanation of what's going on. I mean, this really looks bad, and if it's an easy explanation, then great. Easy explanation, I'll shut up. Spectra, let's go back to that one again. It doesn't seem like we got anywhere by the newspaper doing an article either. No city employees, period. Article 6, first sentence. It's very, very clear. It's not a gray area. Why is the city spending more money on this when the contract states that Spectra could hire a contractor, an outside contractor, to do the grounds? They can literally go pay $15,000 and be done with it and have the grass mowed for a year, instead of having to pay wear and tear, gas, our employees' salaries that keeps them doing Spectra things instead of out doing things in the city. We don't have to pay for any kind of medical either. That would be on whoever the contract company is to pay their own employees. So why didn't we do that? There's a thing in the federal government called fraud, waste, and abuse. It's taken real seriously. While in this case, I gave you the arrows, I don't think it's fraud at all. I don't think there's an argument for that, period. However, on the waste and abuse part, I think that's a pretty easy case to make. That we're wasting money and we're abusing something. I've got a little tiny bit left. How is it not the waste and abuse? On 15 June 2020, the CC meeting, Spectra acknowledged the entire 52 grounds, the entire 52 acre grounds, that they were responsible for it. It's on the record, it's on the tape. Very last question. Why wasn't an operating budget amendment called for to achieve this? Article 7.2 goes towards getting a contractor for the grounds. When is enough enough? And last thing, please don't ask Chance or Mr. Vondran to answer these questions. I don't actually want to hear from them. I understand that they may know the answers, but so should every one of y'all. Granted, with Seth, 3 of you weren't here when that was voted on, so you're out. On the Spectra contract, however, 5 of you injected yourself into that one. 2 of you did not, so you don't need to. But I want this body to answer these questions. And this should not have to be asked 5 times. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's see, item number 2, consideration approval of the consent agenda. Is there anything you guys would like to pull from the consent agenda?
I have one question.
Ready?
Maybe for on item 2B on the Shawnee Beautification Committee minutes. It says that 1 member attended virtually. I know we can't. Is it different because it's a committee?
Yes.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
You good on that?
I'm good, yeah.
Okay, cool. Anything anybody wants to pull off of there? Everybody good?
I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay, got a motion from Bob and Daniel, is that right?
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to approve. So let's call the question.
No.
We'll get there. No problem.
The dreaded oh no.
All right, we're ready. Sorry about that.
Now we're blinking. All right, motion passes 7-0. I feel we're up to the head of the week. So we have a pet this week? Oh, yeah, we do. Just saw one go flying by there.
Hello,
Are
I'm
you-
Brandy from Shawnee Animal Welfare. Our pet of the week this week is Sheba. She is a pocket bully, about 2 years old. She's super high energy but very
Yep.
friendly, and she is available for adoption. She is already spayed.
Very nice.
We don't
She
have any
is high
upcoming
energy.
events with all the COVID stuff going on. Us kind of not knowing what's going on with that in small meetings. We don't have any events planned right now.
Okay, very good. Thank you so
All
much.
right, thank you.
Thank you.
Come on, baby.
All righty. We have a mayor's proclamation. I guess you have it there. So we will do that. How you doing, Angie? I'm doing great. Okay, we have, maybe turn this one so folks can see you. We have a SSM Health St. Anthony Hospital Shawnee Healthcare Heroes Appreciation Week, very well deserved. So, the Merriam-Webster definition of hero is a person admired for achievements and noble qualities, and one who shows great courage, the central figure in an event, period, or movement, or an object of extreme admiration and devotion. After COVID-19, another definition should be added to dictionary: healthcare professional. Whereas the city of Shawnee wishes to express appreciation for those healthcare professionals who are the embodiment of the word hero, who are making personal and professional sacrifices in the fight against COVID-19 pandemic. And whereas we recognize that hardworking people who choose to battle this unyielding disease deserve our collective respect and appreciation for the critical and life-saving work being done, even when doing the job puts their own health at risk and puts our families above their own. And whereas we recognize that this critical work is relentless and being fought under extremely difficult circumstances, but they return on a daily basis to support the health of our communities through compassionate care and unrivaled dedication. And whereas we are honored to join the Avitas Foundation in celebrating SSM Health St. Anthony Hospital, Shawnee, and the heroes who are on the front line working tirelessly to help others during their greatest time of need, especially during this period when our city, state, and country are in the peak of the COVID-19 pandemic. Whereas all citizens are asked to show their support by wearing blue and attending the virtual Facebook Live celebration on December 17, 2020 at 10 a.m. They can also express their appreciation by mailing thank you messages to 1102 West MacArthur, Shawnee, Oklahoma 74804. Now therefore I, Ed Bolt, Mayor of the City of Shawnee, Oklahoma, by the authority vested in me, do hereby proclaim the week of December 13, 2020 to be SSM Health St. Anthony Hospital, Shawnee Healthcare Heroes Appreciation Week. So I'm going to give this to Angie Moore, who's the president of our hospital. Thank you so much for all the work that you guys are doing up there for us to keep us healthy and safe and putting yourselves at risk to do it. And Kathy, I think you maybe wanted to say a word.
Yeah, I just want to invite the community any way that you would like the week of December 13th to show your appreciation to our healthcare employees at the hospital who are weary and worn out, and Angie can speak a little bit more to that. Any way you want to show it, we have a special event planned on the 17th. If you haven't signed the banner, we encourage you to do that for those of you that are here present at this meeting. And also, if you have ideas and you don't have ideas but you want to help somehow, you can call Carla Tollett at St. Anthony's, and she will talk to you about how you can best support and help our healthcare professionals. Angie, do you want to talk a little bit?
So Ed, thank you. Thank you, the City of Shawnee, as well, for recognizing the hospital. We are full. Our hospital's been full, including our ICU. There are no beds at our hospital right now for inpatients. We've been dealing with this for about a month now. Many of our admitted patients have to stay in the emergency department because there are no beds upstairs. And our healthcare staff, our nurses, respiratory therapists, lab, radiology, all those clinical, housekeeping, supportive services also are working extra. And they are exhausted and they are weary, as Kathy had mentioned. So any support that you can give, the kind words on the banner outside, wearing your mask when you're in public, hand hygiene, social distancing as much as possible will and hopefully decrease the prevalence of COVID in our community, so that we want to start 2021 back in a normal state without all of this. So any support that you can give is much appreciated. Thank you so much, Ed.
Yep. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. we are up to item 5, discussion and consideration to use CARES Act funds for Shawnee Forward to administer a small business relief program. So, Chance, I think you're up.
Mr. Mayor and Commissioners, I'm going to introduce Rachel Milo with Shawnee Forward. She's the CEO of our local chamber body. She's been working on a program to develop a small business relief program to administer the use of some of our CARES funds and creating a process for distributing those to qualified businesses that would meet the criteria. She's going to discuss the program and what she's come up with as far as the procedure this evening. So I'll turn it over to Rachel.
Thank you. Thanks, Chance. It's been 4 or 5 months since I've been before you. I don't know if you've missed me, but I've definitely missed the attacks that come with standing up here. Not missed that at all, so it's good to be welcomed back properly. I am proposing your involvement and participation today in a small business relief fund. This small business relief fund is actually mirrored from other economic development communities, other economic development entities around our state. You may have seen that Oklahoma City allocated $15 million of their CARES Act over to Small Business Relief Fund. As a result of that and some other things, they're now being touted as one of the greatest big cities for small businesses. Shawnee Forward has recognized that our small businesses are such a crucial and critical component of our survival. Not only are they generating a great deal of all of our taxes, but they're also great places for our graduates to work or to stay in our community. We believe that all the businesses in our county benefit the city of Shawnee. And we have gone to the county and asked if they would make the first fund deposit into a group fund to create a small business relief grant. I have communicated with the economic development directors of several communities about our size who have done this. So communities like Stillwater, Duncan, other communities in kind of similar size to us, and asked them, what did they learn from doing this? Many of them did these grants in September and October. We are maybe a little later to the game, but honestly, with the state that we are in, our small businesses right now are in this gap place where there hasn't been any funding, there hasn't been any new information for assistance. We've seen the announcement of 3 of our downtown businesses announcing either closure or reduced time open because they're having to make really tough decisions. So we believe that putting together a small business grant would show a really great investment in our business owners and our communities. We are asking if the city would like to participate in this small business relief fund. The county, Potawatomi County, has invested $100,000 into the fund. We're asking if the city would like to consider $50,000 into that fund. We have also made asks to other cities in our county. It is on the agenda in Tecumseh tonight at this exact same time as well. They'll be making a decision tonight. We have reached out to some of the other cities who, some of them were not able to receive the funds money because they didn't have the staff to actually put together the application, or they were late in being notified that townships could actually apply. That's some of the cities in our county. We've also had some cities tell us, quite frankly, that if they reallocated their CARES money, they'd probably close their doors as a city government. So we have a lot of pain in our county, and they suffer when our businesses suffer. So we're looking at this as an investment in us and our neighbors as a county. Some of them said, hey, we'd love to do it, but we just can't get it together this quickly. We've put this together fairly quickly in hopes that we could issue checks to our businesses in January because we're hearing their pain. What I've provided for you is something that is not public yet. To the comments earlier, this will all be public when the application is public, which is expected to be Wednesday. This will be public when the application goes live. Based on how tonight's votes go, that adjusts obviously some of the numbers. So that's why some of this hasn't gone public. We have already seen things misquoted, so we want to make sure that when it goes live on Wednesday, everybody has all of the facts. We have provided for you the grant application and award process, and I have provided for you the rubric, which has been vetted by multiple committees. This is also based on input from those other communities our size. What I will tell you about this grant that is actually very different from the other grants in our state is that this grant and the rubric and the application criteria are based on what investments are businesses making to stay open. What we saw, and as many of you know, I'm a small business owner, is what we saw when we were applying for EIDL and PPP. It was all based on showing loss within a particular time period. Unfortunately, that adversely is not fair to everybody, because whatever that time period is may not actually reflect your billing cycle and your pain, right? So if you had to show a loss in second quarter, you may be receiving all of your billing from what you did in first quarter, but if you're doing zero billing in second quarter, you're actually taking the hit in the third, and so you didn't qualify because you didn't show the loss at the right time. So what we're proposing is that they actually put before us their plan of investment. We are asking them to show that they were in business this year. Not that they were open, because quite frankly, some of them were mandated closed, but did they try to remain in business? We have some small businesses in our community that had to close their door for periods of days, but they took that opportunity to invest in their online presence and their digital media, and then they were able to remain open. And we don't want to penalize them because they were creative. So this application process, you can see, actually allows people to just show us what they have invested, what they plan to invest, and how they think that's going to help them remain sustainable and open. What we want to do is help people who have made it this far stay open. What you will also see as kind of a last item before I field questions is all of the people who are not eligible to apply. And so for anyone who feels like this is not being, or it's an inside trading, if you will, you are not eligible as commissioners. Shawnee Forward board members are not eligible. Shawnee Forward employees are not eligible. The City of Shawnee city commissioners are not eligible. Potawatomi County commissioners will not be eligible if you decide to contribute to the fund. If Tecumseh decides to contribute to the fund, their commissioners will not be eligible either. So anyone contributing to the fund or managing the fund will not be eligible to apply. And so what we have done is tried to look at the best executed relief grant funds that we have seen in our state and tried to take the best things from each of them to put together a fund that would help our county. And with that, I would definitely open for any questions.
I have some questions. A couple of them might be directed at Chance, but these funds that we would allocate are funds that have been allocated to the city. Is that correct, for use of whatever type project that we decide? What fund? How many funds do we still have available?
We haven't spent any of our CARES funds.
So what? How many?
2.4 million.
2.4 million. And do we have a deadline to spend that?
No, that was reimbursement for expenditures during the period that we were that were eligible expenditures.
Okay. Okay.
It is a reimbursement to us.
Okay. Yeah. Rachel, a question. What type, I know that some things that I've observed in businesses that are open, particularly restaurants, having the plexiglass between the booths and at tables, these are some of the type things that they might ask for assistance. What other kind of things that maybe aren't obvious?
Yeah.
Would they possibly be needing help with?
Sure. So some of the ideas that we have kind of gathered so we could kind of help foster the ideas are maybe they needed to invest in a gift card system So if you don't own a small business, you may not know that there's significant costs that we incur so that we can offer a gift card. So in March, when my business closed, I had to make about a $2,500 investment in my point of sale software system so that I could be an online vendor. So that's something that they may ask for assistance. They may ask for hand washing stations or the tools, the PPE type tools. They may ask for technology to allow their employees to work remotely. So maybe you were set up as only an in-person business and now you need to send your employees home and maybe you need to invest in some technology. That could be something. It could be a business that needs a pickup space added to the outside of their building, right? So that you could do touchless pickup or drop off. So there are a lot of ways that people could apply. But those are great questions, and we want to open this to people really telling us whatever it is that they feel they need, and then they write a business plan for that return for them.
Do you anticipate, I know the maximum is $5,000, do you anticipate people applying for the maximum, or are we looking at possibly some small amounts where we can have more people that are serviced?
Sure. So I asked a lot of other places, and most all of their applicants asked for all of it. It didn't mean that they always granted it. But I would assume, and that is just an assumption, I don't know, that most of our applicants will ask for the full $5,000. But somebody who maybe has already invested in outside seating may just need a couple of heaters. And so, maybe they just need 3 $200 heaters. And that we obviously then could continue to give to more businesses.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Would this program allow for reimbursement?
Yes.
Commissioner Weaver brought up, say, plexiglass for restaurants. Obviously, they've probably already spent that money.
Yeah, that was a really tough discussion internally about that. And really what we decided was, we don't want to penalize the businesses who made the investment and then now are having a hard time making payroll.
Sure.
So similar to how the city received their CARES funding, we believe that the businesses could kind of have that same, they should have that same opportunity to allow it to be reimbursable. And when you do talk about just tracing the dollars, those are the easiest to account for than even the projected ones. But they, as you can see, they do have to provide their budget with their line items, and all of that's in the application of the line item of costs and what their expected return on that investment is.
So just so people will hear you say it, obviously there's going to be a group of folks that will evaluate these applications and make a decision. So could you kind of tell us, you probably don't have names of those people yet, but could you kind of explain kind of who those people will be?
Yeah, sure. So, and again, in an effort to ensure that it's not the same 5 decision makers evaluating this, we have reached out to the county and asked them to recommend somebody in the county to serve on this task force. And then we have pulled 4 people from kind of every quadrant of the county, outside of both inside and outside of the city of Shawnee. Committee members that have high business acumen, that have significant financial background, and who agree to sign an NDA of information, because obviously businesses are disclosing a great deal of personal information. So they've gone through some of those steps and agreed to serve, and that task force will review the applications, ensure that the applicants submitted all of the proper paperwork and qualifications and did all of that. When I talk to the other communities, that's actually the most laborious step, is to ensure that all of the proper paperwork gets submitted so that they can actually submit a complete application. So that's pretty, it's a pretty heavy burden, and honestly my staff wouldn't be able to do that. I don't have enough people to really even do that on our own. And then that committee will evaluate everything on the provided rubric and score them, not only on the score and on first come, first serve against that rubric. And then we will give out and then they will make a recommendation to a committee of 3, which is myself, and a county appointee, and a city appointee, that then will review that recommendation. And then at that point, there will be award letters given, and we are hoping to announce the award recipients by the end of January.
Okay, and then they'd have money in their hand pretty quickly after that.
Yeah, we will handle all of the, and this is one of those things that Shawnee Forward will handle all of the check writing. There's a separate account that's being set up, and all of that will actually receive a separate, we think that that's also going to require a separate audit at the end of the year when we do a traditional audit, that this grant funding will then also get a second audit.
Right, and obviously people are going to know who was awarded money and how much. People will know who was awarded money and how much.
Yes, there'll be a public announcement of the award recipients.
Right.
Can you reveal the names of those that have agreed to be a part of that?
Well, what we have told them is that we would allow their names to remain anonymous so that they don't get bombarded and campaigned.
And how many of those individuals are there?
There are 5 total.
So if maybe they're not publicly released, but do they, I'm a little concerned with that.
That's fair. This is a volunteer situation, and we just don't want them to have to be campaigned while they're trying to make a decision on funding.
Am I correct in they're making a recommendation, the final decision's made by yourself, a city appointee and a county appointee?
Correct.
So ultimately, we wouldn't know if you went with or didn't go with the recommendation of the committee. I mean, you could see, the committee can recommend no or yes, and you could ultimately, the 3 decide no. So denial wouldn't necessarily mean it was done by the task force, or I'm not saying you necessarily plan to. I'm just saying that is a possibility.
Yeah. I think that I know that. Yeah. Any other questions?
Been quiet on this side.
So who put together the list of the 5?
I actually worked with our economic development committees and my staff and our county commissioner. So I worked with kind of all 3 to get some input on people who would, one, they also become ineligible to apply by serving on that, obviously. So it needed to be people who had the business acumen, who had the financial backing to be able to read these financial documents, and who did not need to apply. And then we just tried to look at making sure that we had some representation across the different areas of our county.
Well, if I might continue on that, Rachel. When I worked at Canadian Valley Electric, we had a program called Operation Roundup, and many in this room are familiar with the foundation. We received money that we allocated to applicants. Our board members were constantly publicized, everyone who they were. We would meet every other month, and those members weren't ever bombarded by individuals that applied for applications. They submitted their application and reviewed them and fairly evaluated them and had a great track record of honesty and integrity. And I think that's where I'm a little concerned that we're trying to shield any business people who, I mean, I can't understand someone saying I'll serve but only if I'm anonymous. That concerns me. And the one other comment, then I'll be quiet. I think if we do allocate funds, the funds should be 100% to Shawnee residents, with them being Shawnee funds. And I think we have that obligation to see that the money is spent that way. And I don't know how that fits into the way your program's designed. It appears that it'll all go in one pot and that it would be allocated to anyone in the area, whether it be Tecumseh or in the county. And I really feel like we should have a responsibility as commissioners to assure that the funds that we contribute are for Shawnee residents. And I don't know if that's contradiction of how you have it proposed. I've
That's
just kind of
correct.
gotten all this to here tonight, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, sure. You are correct. We're proposing it goes into one pot. Again, looking at just the sheer volume of the work it takes to distribute this, then allocating dollar per zip code, if you will, is just another layer of work that we don't have the bandwidth for. So we are actually proposing it goes in one fund. By sheer likelihood and probability, there will be more applicants from this area. But the county is actually right now putting in the biggest portion of it, and Shawnee Forward is really tasked with the greater Shawnee area. So at this point, we're actually requesting it goes into one single fund, and then it gets distributed. And so,
And I understand Shawnee Forward has that mission, but I
Yep.
kind of feel like we have a mission that's a little different than that. But again, I
And
like
that's okay.
what you're proposing, and I love the idea of helping and just sharing a few concerns that I have. So.
no,
But to make that mark though, only a third, and Tecumseh may add a little to the pot, only a third of that would have to come to Shawnee to satisfy your concern. Because, well, there's 100,000 the county has put in.
Uh-huh.
There's 50,000 that you're asking us tonight, so that's 150,000. I mean, our 50 that we're throwing in, you would want to come back here to Shawnee, and I understand that concern, but of that 150, there's only a third of it that would have to come back here, and surely we would have more of that come back here, I would think.
I don't know, actually, I guess I missed the amount of money that you're asking for. I thought you were asking for 100,000, but it's 50,000.
I'm asking for 50, but our small
they
businesses
would
would
take-
take 500
they'll take
if you
more.
would give it to them.
They'll always take more.
I mean, I did ask the county for 50 and they gave me 100, so if you want to give me 100, that'd
Yeah.
be great.
Well, I guess without arguing beyond that, I would think that that's not of benefit to the residents in Tecumseh or the county if the majority of applicants likely will be coming from Shawnee if they have funded 2/3 of the amount, which, that seems to me to just be a reverse concern.
And again, we want everybody to
I'm
participate, and
sorry.
we just kind of have to
I'm
believe
not
that
trying
the
to
high
make this
tide will rise
difficult.
all boats.
I understand.
I employ people who live in Bethel. And so, I need Bethel's city and school to do well, just like I need Shawnee's people
So
to
do
do
I.
well. And
I
so,
understand.
I understand the concern. It's completely valid. But at this time, we're recommending it all goes into one pot, and then we know that more than likely, just by sheer numbers, we are likely to get more applicants from the city of Shawnee because there are more businesses in the city of Shawnee.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think I probably started pretty close to where you are on this as far as in Shawnee. I think over the weekend reading and thinking on it, part of my thinking has changed a little in that many of the surrounding communities, Bethel, Tecumseh, their businesses do business here. So there is some benefit for Shawnee businesses to keep some of this, we see some help from businesses that surround our community but spend money here. It's kind of one of the unique positions as a regional hub. So I started where you are. I think I've maybe evolved a little. And I think, to the mayor's comments, I think he's probably right. Just by sheer probability, there's a great chance that a good amount of the total pot comes to Shawnee, not just the whatever we may decide to contribute. So.
Okay.
Can we allocate our CARES Act funds from the city of Shawnee to this fund? We can't operate under assumptions, but into one pot and not have any control over how it gets divvied up. Is that within our rights with our CARES fund?
I don't have concern with that for the reasons that have been addressed by Ms. Milo and really Commissioner Matthews' point, I think, speaks directly to that and the impact on the area. That being said, I think that that is a decision that's well within the discretion of this commission, and conditions of a pledge to the program could certainly be raised in the form of a motion.
So, in the form of a motion, we could dedicate that portion or a number from our CARES fund, provided a percentage of it goes to businesses with a minimum third or goes to within the city limits of Shawnee. Would that?
Yeah, I mean, certainly
is
up
that
to you guys, you know, how you dictate that those dollars are put forth. Now, the committee or Shawnee Ford may ultimately choose to not accept those funds based upon restrictions placed on them.
Right.
That would be their prerogative. But certainly, if you wanted to say we'll do 50, but we want all 50 to be spent within the city limits of Shawnee, then that would be a decision for Shawnee Ford to make at that point.
But we would not be required to do that because the city of Shawnee is supporting the area, so we're within our legalities to.
Yeah, I don't
think
funds. That there is a legal issue as to the expenditure of the CARES Act funds.
Okay, yeah.
With that, Mayor, I have a motion, if that's appropriate.
Go ahead, sir.
With hashing this all out,
Yeah.
I've now formed an opinion.
That's what this is for.
I make a motion that we approve $50,000 with no restrictions to incorporate the money into the fund as you proposed. I think my thinking has changed to think we are trying to benefit all, and this is not city funds. This is money that's come to us in CARES funds. So it's not, I think our fiscal responsibility is not quite there as it would be if it was city budgeted money. Okay.
One more question.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Are we satisfied with $50,000?
Well, I know Rachel's not.
Well, I mean, the county's doing 100. I mean, I don't know. I think one more question. Chance, can we do $50,000?
Yes, sir, we can.
And do we want to let the county one up us?
Do we have anything budgeted for the 2.6? 2.4.
2.2?
Whatever that number is.
2.4.
Okay.
Mr. Commissioner, we can find ways to spend 2.4
I
million.
understand.
I promise you.
But currently,
We haven't spent any.
we haven't spent any of it.
If it's this commission's desire to spend 100 versus 50, that's certainly so we can accommodate.
My question is the number of businesses that will be able to be affected by this. Another 50 would greatly increase that and hopefully keep those businesses going longer and in turn making more tax dollars that come back to us to be reintroduced into our community and to our city to continue to do good things. Sometimes I don't know. Based on what we've done for our own small nonprofit, $5,000 doesn't go very far, and
Spend that pretty quick.
yeah, that goes pretty quick. I wish we could do more than that sometime. So.
And Travis, we did talk about those limits because you're exactly right. I mean, a small business can do a $5,000 investment just so fast, and it goes so fast. We did talk about that, but we saw that most communities our size were limiting at $5,000 so that they could just help more. Oklahoma City does, I think, up to $25,000. I think is their number. I'm not exactly sure on that, but theirs was one of the higher ones. But most of them were at about $5,000. I will tell you that Stillwater, and I've been in a lot of conversations, and they did their first grant and completely issued all of the funds and had enough applicants in 10 days. And now they're going back to offer a second grant program that they're in the works of now, that they actually want to model after our model, which is less on showing loss and more on showing investment. And so I've been in great talks with them. I think they're actually going to take our rubric and our criteria, and they're going to release a second set.
I apologize, just point of procedure. Commissioner Weaver, did you complete your motion?
Well, I thought I did, but I'm not sure I got it all the way through.
Okay. Because what I had was motion for $50,000 to replace the program with no restrictions. Is that it?
Yes, as proposed.
As proposed.
And then I asked Commissioner if he wanted to amend my motion, and he wasn't
No,
sure.
I'm not going to amend your motion.
Okay. All
Okay.
right.
So there is a motion that it won't end discussion, but it either needs a second or not, just as a point of procedure.
So if you guys get overwhelmed with applicants, then at that point, you're gonna be back asking for more funds probably. I mean, you'll need more funds.
You know, we can close it, we can issue, and then we can revisit it and see if the return was there for your CARES Act money, and revisit it in 90 days. I mean, that's kind of what Stillwater did. They revisited it in 90 days and looked at, and we've put in our application a requirement for them to participate in the 90-day review. Again, that's one of the things the other communities wished they had done. They assumed it would happen. And so I would say in 90 days, you can look at it and say, yes, this was a great investment and we want to do this.
So how are we gonna reach potential recipients?
How are we going to do what?
Are we gonna reach the participants that would be, I mean, the
So-
ones that are directly involved with Shawnee Ford are gonna know about it as soon as you okay it, but the ones that are kind of outside that bubble, how do we reach them so they know about it?
Yeah, sure. So we've communicated with all major news publications in print to do a press release that cover our county. We do have a really extensive email list of both members and non-members, and we will put it in social feeds. And I've reached out to city managers in each of the communities to see if they will distribute it through their channels, even if they couldn't participate in the funds.
Okay.
Still have a pending motion with that. Second.
I'm going to second it.
We have a second. All right.
Okay, so go ahead.
Can we still discuss
Oh,
after
yeah,
it's second? Okay. So I want to just make a plea, assuming this is moving forward. There's going to be some businesses out there that I hope people really take heart to this, that are going to score well and probably be granted the maximum amount, or close to it. Make sure that you need it to survive, because it is a limited amount of funds, and make sure your neighbor is not going to suffer because you scored better, you took it, you could have survived, they're not. So please, everyone, consider those things when you're doing these. Think about your neighbors if you absolutely have to have it, because there are businesses that have to have it. They will not survive without this help. And there are some that are going to survive that may score higher. And if you're in that, please pass.
Good point. Anybody else got anything?
Yes, we're in
Go
discussion.
ahead.
I will say that those that are ineligible, I think, is completely appropriate. And that affects a lot of businesses.
Absolutely.
And a lot of people that probably have some needs of their own, but I think that proves it's not self-serving. Also, I wish that we didn't have anonymous from the beginning task force, and I want to note that and say that I just think I'm concerned with that, but my motion doesn't address changing that, but I would hope you'd reconsider that.
And it may be prudent to announce them once the awards are given.
Okay. All right.
Everybody else good? Benny, you've been quiet down there.
I think most of my concerns have been answered. The latest comment that was made on self-serving, I don't want to see the committee doing a good old boy thing.
Right.
That's what concerns me. And it being anonymous, then we're not going to know the applications and then how they were awarded.
if you want my commentary on that, that's part of the rubric, so that there is a scoring system with which everybody has to abide by. And the other thing I would tell you is there are 5 people on the committee, and 3 of them don't know each other, if that's helpful. They did not know who that human was until I introduced them as serving on the committee together.
But
I don't know if that helps.
But my understanding then is those 5 can make a recommendation, but if you will, the subcommittee of 3 can overrule them.
Yes, and I know this isn't black and white, but the intent of that overarching committee is actually just to ensure that none of those approved businesses are in bad standing with any of the 3 entities. That's the intent of that. Not to actually overrule their recommendation. It's just to ensure that we're not awarding somebody who is maybe in litigation with us or something of the sort. If that helps at all, that committee was really just identified to make sure we're not issuing to somebody who's at odds with any of the 3 entities.
Everybody good?
Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, so let's call the question. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you for all the discussion. Very productive, I thought. Back to where we are. Thank you, Rachel, for all your time. Item number 6, discussion and consideration to provide financial assistance for Shawnee Civic and Cultural Development Authority to assist with the International Finals Rodeo, Ifyr. So, Mr. City Manager, you are up.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor and Commissioners, I'm going to introduce Randy and Suzanne Gilbert. Randy is the chair of the Shawnee Civic and Cultural Development Authority, that authority owns the Ifyr Rodeo, and that they host that event at the Expo annually. So this is to discuss a financial commitment from the city in the form of economic development dollars to assist with hosting that rodeo this year again.
Okay,
fiscal
very
year
good.
2021.
Welcome, Randy. Good to see you.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners, for what you do for the city of Shawnee and for our area. First, let me back up just a second. I too am a fond memories of St. Anthony's, SSEM. They do a great job. They are truly champions in our community, so thank them for everything you do. So thank you. Now then, we'll talk about the IFYR 2021. Pretty exciting time for us. This will be the 28th annual IFYR. Most of us, as you are as well, looking forward to 21. This we feel like will be a great year. We look forward to all the things that we have coming. The 2021 IFYR is, there's been a lot of interest around the country. We've had calls, Suzanne and I, as well as several of the trust authority members, have had calls from people around the country saying, hey, are we coming to Shawnee this summer? And we say yes, and we look forward to seeing you. We're going to have a wonderful event. With all of that, due to the activities of COVID-19, some of our sponsors are a little bit still on hold. We are working with some of them. We're working with Spectra on the sponsor activities, and we are a little bit in a tight spot. So tonight, I'm here to ask the Shawnee City Commission to help us with a $50,000 grant funds to help with the 21 rodeo. We have another public entity that has committed to match the $50,000 that Shawnee has, that the commission has. So we want to have a wonderful event. We've met with the volunteer committees a couple of times, and they are thrilled, they're excited, they look forward to the rodeo. They're in the stage now, you know, there's about a 10-day commitment from those committee heads and from their volunteers. You know, we used to say 500, but truly the numbers are in the, you know, the 400 to 450 range now. And they're already in the process of scheduling vacations for next summer, taking time off from work, having their kids come in, their adult children come in to help them. So we look forward to it. We think it'll be wonderful. We're just asking for a little support at this time to make sure that it does happen. So with that, I'll open up for questions, comments from the commissioners. I believe in 2015, we did an economic impact study, and I believe it was in the $5.8 million economic impact for our area. So we look forward to it. And a lot of great people come to Shawnee, Oklahoma.
Absolutely.
What's the dates this year?
Yeah, do we have dates yet, Randy?
Yes, we have dates.
All right.
And I'll look them up.
There we go.
The date would be July. The first performance from Suzanne would be 11th, Sunday night, so the dates will be July 11th through the 16th.
Okay. Very good.
Randy, did you, in all that conversation, did you mention the dollar amount you're requesting?
He did.
50.
50,000. Yeah, 50,000. Yes, sir.
I just wanted to hear that again.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you. But I too, like Rachel, would be great with 100. So, but 50 is what we're asking for. Yes, sir.
Well, and obviously there are a lot of expenses I know to put the rodeo on
Yes.
upfront expenses and things, and the rodeo not being held in 2020.
Yes.
I know is difficult. Funds available still from 2020? Are there?
No.
There are no funds at all?
No. Some of the major sponsors will use Ram Rodeo, for example. Their guy that comes to our rodeo every year normally works around 300 rodeos. We saw him last weekend, and he went to 3 rodeos this summer.
Really?
So the way that works,
a lot of activities have cut back
Sure.
for their sponsor dollars.
Since we didn't get to hold the rodeo, then none of those funds came in from those sponsors, which is what you're asking for in funding now. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Have you gotten a commitment from the county
Yes.
for?
Match of what the city does.
Okay,
50 is what.
okay. You said, I didn't hear the county.
Yes.
He just didn't say who it was.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
We look forward to having it, and certainly, I think several of you've been out to the rodeo. I know the mayor took some drone pictures
Always
a
a
couple,
good
3
event.
years ago
Always a good event.
that are pretty inspiring, and I mean, it's a wonderful event.
And Chance, we're good money-wise and everything, as far as the city goes, our
Yes, sir,
financial
Mr. Mayor.
standing.
I was just going to address that. The city
Okay. I'll
has
let you-
prepared the anticipation of
Right.
assisting with the rodeo in 2021, and we do have the funding available for this.
Okay.
That's actually in the budget that was passed.
Yes, sir.
And this is in addition to the labor costs provided that are already going to be provided.
Personnel wise.
Personnel from Spectre, yeah, will be assisting. Yeah.
It being a legacy event.
Right.
To get the,
Yes.
those details.
Yes.
Any other questions? We have a motion?
I make a motion, we approve $50,000.
I'll second.
Alrighty. Alrighty, we have a motion and a second. And Randy, before you go, I just want, you and Suzanne just put on that Thanksgiving event, and I really appreciate you guys doing that. That's always a good event. You help a lot of people there. So thank you while you're up here. I wanted to tell you that.
Thank you. We had a drive-through
I saw
event this
that.
year, the way
We're
it
all
is.
getting creative this year.
And we fed right at 700, so.
Very good. Thank
So it
you
was
so
wonderful.
much.
Thank you for that, Mayor.
We have a motion and a second.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Darren.
Thanks, Randy.
Thank you, Randy.
All righty. Motion passes 7-0. Okay, we're looking forward to Rodeo.
Mr. Mayor, will you
Yes, sir.
excuse me a minute? Someone sent me a note saying there's a problem with my truck out front, so I'm gonna go check that.
Well,
I'll be right back.
can we take a timeout or?
No, go right ahead.
Just go ahead. All right, push on. Item 8, consideration of following budget amendments. Do I need to read all of these, Mr. City Attorney? Or?
We're on item 7, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, I'm I need to get back where we belong then. Okay. Discussion and consideration to enter into professional service contract for building cleaning services. I just put my notes in the wrong place, what I did. All righty, so I think James is up.
Yes.
Good to see you,
Mayor and
James.
Commissioners. We're here to request authorization to hire a professional janitor to clean the library, the senior center, planning and engineering building, and City Hall.
Okay.
That's 4 of our main buildings that have a lot of public foot traffic. Currently, we have 2 staff members that clean these 4 buildings, and the other 3, which is the community center, 227, and the auditorium. Some of the reasons for looking at this would be that the cleaning is done after hours, where our 2 staff members sometimes gets calls during the day, called off of what they're doing. It puts a real hardship on us to try to get around to cleaning and sanitizing everything. It would create a consistent cleaning every day, since we do only have those 2 staff members. When somebody's sick or on vacation, it puts a hardship on the rest of the staff to try to fill in, to come in and sanitize and clean. Special attention to disinfecting due to COVID-19. There is more cleaning now to be done since the COVID. Hiring this, if we did hire personnel cost, it would exceed what we would be paying this company to come in and clean these 4 buildings. You say, what are we going to do with the 2 people we have? Well, they're going to diagnose and remedy emergency maintenance calls during the day. We do get a few calls during the day where the toilet backs up or somebody spills something, this needs to be swept or extra trash to be taken out. They'll handle all that. They'll maintain still the janitorial supply that we have to have for the restrooms. They'll clean the less trafficked buildings. They'll do some training and be able to do some light maintenance work along with their other maintenance employees. This this is not required for to be bid out, since it is professional service contract. We did go ahead and get 3 bids on this. I added those into your packet and the costs. And we have talked to Finance Department, and this will be funded from the general fund, and we have those funds available.
Very good. I've got questions for James. Comments?
Are they gonna add the police station when they get up and running?
Good question.
Mr. Commissioner, no, sir. The police station is using an employee that was previously an officer who's retired, who works part-time to help keep that facility clean, yeah.
Any other questions? See Darren studying there.
Taking the lowest bid, the cost per year would be $72,458. The company supply their own chemicals to clean with, their own supplies, so we wouldn't be providing that any for them.
Right.
Are they doing additional COVID-19 call, or because as this dwindles away, will that change? Will that go down?
We haven't had that discussion. We just know that we need more cleaning than really what we can get to right now. I'm sure that yes, we can have that discussion. It could go down a little bit, but you know, right now we're hard pressed to get to where we can clean everything anyway. So,
yeah, Mr. Commissioner, this is simply just the utilization of economies of scale. This organization, I mean, Jenny King, I believe, is the recommendation. That they can clean these buildings after hours for far less than what we could hire enough staff throughout the day to clean these. And so this is just sheer and economic, trying to be creative and find ways to maintain clean and healthy facilities while also maximizing our budget.
Anybody else got any questions? Anyone want to make a motion? Travis will make the motion.
I'll second.
Is that Mark? Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. Thank you very much, James.
And that's a motion to approve Janet King?
Janet King. Yes, staff recommendation. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you very much. Now we go to 8. So consideration of the following budget amendments. So do I need to read all these, or is she going to go through them, or what do we need to do procedurally?
I believe Ms. Neal will go through them.
Okay, very good. Ashley, good to see you.
Hi. Okay, so this is just a continuation of the budget amendments you've been seeing the past couple meetings, just doing a mid-year review of our budget and updating as needed. Nothing overly exciting. We're covering some new equipment for the new police station for dispatch out of the E911 fund. We're covering some garage capital needs and some building maintenance needs out of our capital improvement fund. We are also moving some funds into our CDBG fund so that we can do some more home rehab. These are from actual CDBG funds, but they're just in different pots, but we're allowed to move them together to spend them. And so that's just formalizing that. And that is mainly it, but I'm more than happy to answer any questions you may have.
Have you got any questions?
Do we need to make a motion on each of these?
No,
we can do all of them.
Yeah. If you want to pull any for
discussion,
not approved, then you need to pull it.
I'll make a motion to approve the items.
As is, Daniel?
As is, yes.
Okay.
So that'd be 8A through 8E.
8A through 8E, yeah.
Okay, so we have a motion.
Second.
Second by Bob. All right, thank you, Ashley. We have a motion and a second, so let's call the question. And it passes 7-0. Thank you very much. All righty, public hearing and consideration of an ordinance to rezone property located southeast corner of North Kickapoo Avenue and West 10th Street containing 1.79 acres from C3 Highway Commercial District and R3 Multifamily Residential District to C4 Central Business District for the purpose of a warehouse, case number P19-20, applicant South Central Industries, and then there's Rebecca.
So this public hearing notice is a little bit different. As you notice, there's 2 zonings right now that they have currently. That's because this property that they're requesting the rezone is actually comprised of 6 separate lots. Right. I would let you know that this is adjoining the existing South Central campus that they have, and they're at 9th between Kickapoo and Louisa. That particular property is C3. However, South Central has an extended campus south of 9th Street, which is already zoned C4. And so this approval tonight would just basically
rezone the rest of their campus that is not C4, which is Central Business District, most of our downtown, to be contiguous with the C4 zoning that they have on their campus south of 9th Street. We are very excited that they are expanding their operations, and that will also accommodate more jobs to our community. But with that, I would be happy to answer any questions that you all may have.
Anybody got any questions?
Make a motion.
Alrighty, motion approved. Second by, okay, so Bob and Travis.
Actually, that was not Travis.
Oh, it wasn't, who was it? Daniel?
I will second
Man.
it if you would like it.
Well, no, that's good. Let me tell you, it's been as hard to hear as it is to talk tonight. Let me tell you, I don't know what that's all right. All right, so Bob and Daniel then, so. Oh, we need to,
We need to
we're
do
getting
public
ahead.
hearing and then.
All right, well, all right.
Sorry about that. That's
Well,
right.
my bad too. So let's open the public hearing then. So, is there anybody here to speak in favor? Seeing none, okay, well, come on up, Tina.
I would just say we would appreciate this very much.
Thank you. It's good seeing you.
I'm in favor.
Got Tina's vote. Okay, anybody wants to speak against? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. I guess our motions still stand, Mr. Attorney?
Here, I'll make the
Or
motion
do we
again.
need to, there we go. No,
I'll
make-
second.
There we go. All right, keep the same names, Bob and Daniel. All righty, so now let's call the
Mr.
question.
Mayor, I'll read the ordinance
Okay,
title into the
very
record
good.
briefly. An ordinance concerning the zoning classification of the following described property located within the corporate limits of the city of Shawnee, Potawatomi County, Oklahoma, to wit, the north 15 feet of lot 18 and all of lots 19 through 32 of said block 19 from zoning classification C3, Highway Commercial District, and R3, Multifamily Residential District, to C4, Central Business District, and amending the official zoning map of the city of Shawnee accordingly.
Okay, thank you very much. So now we'll finally get to that vote. And motion passes 7-0. Another public hearing, item number 10, public hearing consideration for an ordinance to rezone property located on the north side of Wolverine Road, west of North Harrison Avenue, containing 80 acres from A1 Rural Agricultural District to I3 Heavy Industrial District for the purpose of future industry. Case number P20-20, applicant Caruth Family Partnership 1992. So hello again, Rebecca.
Thank you. So this 80 acres has just been family partnership land for some time. It's currently zoned A1, which is rural agricultural. It's just raw land at this time. There are no structures or previous uses that have been on it. And those familiar with the area, you have Jindal there, Bison Metal, some other industries along that road. Our comprehensive plan does peg this area for the expansion of industrial uses. The applicant has told me at this time they don't have a contingency contract or any contract with someone for the land, but their intent is to market it as such for future industry. I think this is very exciting for our community. While some of our small businesses are taking a huge hit, it's also been an opportunity for other companies and industries to expand their operations or look at adding locations, and I think this would be a prime location to invite additional industry to our community.
Good. So that would be our recommendation then, but I guess we have to have a
Yes,
so
staff would recommend
that's staff
approval of this
recommendation.
item, as did Planning Commission unanimously.
Any other questions for Rebecca?
I mean, it looks like there's 80 acres still to the west of that.
To the west.
Yes, sir.
Or whatever that frontage is.
Yep.
I'm good.
Everybody good? So we, thank you. I guess
Thank
we
you.
will open the public hearing, see if there's anybody here to speak in favor.
Are there any of the family members here tonight? from the Cruth estate? Okay, I just want to disclose, I spent a lot of time on that when I was young with Mr. Cruth and his grandson Ray Stevens, who is my next door neighbor and one of my best friends. So just have a lot of sentimental attachment to that, 80 acres, and spent quite a bit of time out there. So,
Anybody here to speak against? Seeing none, then we will close the public hearing. Any more discussion up here? No? Okay. So, how about a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
This time it is Travis. Sure. All righty. So, Mr. Attorney?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. An ordinance concerning the zoning classification of the following described property located within the corporate limits of the city of Shawnee, Potawatomi County, Oklahoma, to wit, the east half of the southwest quarter of Section 18, Township 11 North, Range 4 East of the Indian Meridian, Potawatomi County, Oklahoma, from zoning classification A1, Rural Agricultural District, to I3, Heavy Industrial District, and amending the official zoning map of the city of Shawnee accordingly.
Thank you, sir. So we have a motion and a second, so we'll call the question. And motion passes 7-0. Item 11, public hearing and consideration to amend the 2040 comprehensive plan and consideration of an ordinance to rezone property located approximately 1,100 feet east of Harrison Avenue on East 39th Street, containing 13.49 acres from A1 Rural Agricultural District to R1 Single Family Residential District. Case number CPA 01-20, applicant David Ray.
And this land is going to be familiar to you all.
Mm-hmm.
It came before you in the form of a rezone requesting a planned unit development back in early August.
Right.
At that time, well, now and at that time, our future land use map of our comprehensive plan had this area preserved for high-density residential. And we had talked about having a process which would have to be created in order to entertain amendments of our comprehensive plan, which is what I have before you this evening. So I have a couple of conditions regarding this property. And I will also just emphasize that they are asking for straight R1 single-family zoning, not the planned unit development, which was going to have the smaller lots. So I do want to point that out. But a couple of things that the city attorney and I kind of worked through at Planning Commission. We broke this item into two parts. And so I would ask two separate motions of you all tonight. The first one is the actual amendment of the 2040 comprehensive plan. And when we have that annual review in February of 2021, we would update that future use map. And I would like to make a note that we would allocate 13 to 15 acres to high-density residential in a different part of the city so that we're not losing multifamily designations within our plan, although we would be allocating this for single family. In our comprehensive plan, we have 5,839 acres that are designated to single family housing. We only have 106 acres designated for multifamily. So I just want to make sure that we're not losing any of the 106. And then the other piece would be the actual approval of the rezone application that the developer has requested. So going from A1 to R1, included in your packet is the petition that several of the surrounding property owners had signed in favor of the R1, but not the high density or the PUD designation. So you'll have that. Concerns that were brought up at those meetings back in August were regarding the road of East 39th Street. And we had kind of talked about that it is a public road. It's not up to city standards. And then if we have 58 lots with an average of 2 vehicles per home, how is that going to impact our infrastructure with one point of ingress and egress? That is an item I would like to discussed during the plating process, as that will pertain to the actual plat. I really want to focus just on land use this evening, but Planning Commission did make unanimous recommendations for approval of those two separate motions. I think we're flexible as we're learning how we go. This is new for us, but I can see keeping those separate. One is a housekeeping item for us to internally update that map and keep it current with the review process, and then two, the actual request from the applicant for the rezoning.
Okay. Very good. Anybody got a question or Rebecca while we got her, or we can open the hearing? Well, I guess we're good, so with that, we'll open the public hearing to see if there's anybody here to speak in favor. How are you?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council. I'm John Flowers. I'm here on behalf of David Ray and Cedar Ridge. The council is, I understand, very aware of this particular piece of property, and we appreciate that. We've worked in detail and closely with Mr. Vondran. There is a new project or a new process that's been required, I guess, for some period of time for an amendment of the comprehensive plan. But there was no city ordinance in place to do that, so it was, in some manner, we were required to do something, but there was no procedure by which we could accomplish that.
Right.
And after working with Mr. Vondran, and he will say he was very diligent in getting that done, provided that to us. We made a couple of recommendations which he accepted, and now there is I believe, a very good plan in place to do an amendment of that project. There are two things that are before you tonight. Both of those, I understand, are authorized by the council to be done on a tracking basis, so that they can both be done at the same time. So hopefully a business can operate. I've tried to explain to my client that cities don't operate at the same speed that businesses do. And there you go. I told the Planning Commission, and will tell you all, I was on the city commission of my community of Bethel and was mayor out there for many years. And I had to explain that on a number of occasions, and there's just not anything we can do about that. We just have to follow those procedures. I believe we have done that, and I will say with great help from the Planning Commission, from Mr. Vondran, and from Chance. I think you've got a good staff that is doing that. The amendment that we are asking is change of the comprehensive plan, so we can change it from multifamily use to residential R1 use. And I personally believe that's the best use of that property. There were 177 signatures on a petition opposing the multifamily use, but supporting the R1 use. In addition to that, there was one person that we were not aware of that appeared at the Planning Commission who likewise supported the R1 use and did not support the multifamily use. I can personally say I lived in that neighborhood for some 10 years before I moved in the neighborhood I presently live in. And I do think the R1 is the better use of that piece of property. Additionally, I drove on 39th Street every day of that 10 years, so I'm personally aware of that street. That street is in reasonably good condition. It's not in as good a condition as some of the other streets in Shawnee. And I mentioned to the Planning Commission, and will mention to you all, I was active in participating in getting or assisting to get the 1 cent sales tax done so we could have better roads in Shawnee. And I was very proud of our community and our commission that got done. And although we would like it to be much better than it is, our roads are much better in the city of Shawnee than a lot of the surrounding communities are. And I think we're continuing to improve those and would like to do that. And having said that, my client recognizes that 39th Street needs to be improved. We've been in talk with the city in getting that accomplished and participating in that. I believe we are well on the way of getting that accomplished. That's going to have to be done with the plat part of it. And that was not part of the Planning Commission's recommendation. And we don't believe, two things. We don't believe the 13 acres that the city planner is asking for permission to change is something that is any requirement for my client, for Cedar Ridge in that development. We understand that's an internal matter, and I think she's in agreement with that. And so that's not something we would anticipate interfering with our being able to start. The second thing is the City Planning Commission didn't make any contingency upon the any obligation on behalf of the city or of the developer for the roadway, although we want that done and we recognize that that's going to have to be done. So with that, we would request 2 separate agenda items and would ask that those be approved. And with that, I'll answer any questions, hopefully.
I have a question. If approved, how soon would your client be starting construction?
We would anticipate starting immediately, Mr. Weaver. That's what I've tried to explain to them. If we get it approved this way, my understanding is we're going to get it started immediately. It will have to go before the Transportation Commission. I'm not sure that's the
Traffic Commission.
Traffic Commission, because we want that road improved also, and we're willing to participate in doing that. So that's something that's going to have to be done so we can get our plat approved. That's not part of what we're doing, asking tonight, but we anticipate starting immediately, yes.
Good project.
That's good. Anybody else got any questions? I guess not. Thank you so much. Okay, so is there anybody here to speak? Against, or anyone else want to speak in favor, I guess? Rob, are you coming in favor or against?
I'm coming in favor.
Okay, come on up.
I was the other party at the Planning Commission, and I live in Northridge. This is pretty easy. I had 3 questions for him. I said, how many houses? I believe it was 58. I asked what the square footage was and the approximate cost. All sounded good to me. I don't see any reason to vote no on this at all. Should be setting across the board.
Very good. Thank you. Anybody else want to speak in favor? Seeing none, anyone want to speak against? All right, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Flowers talked about the reallocation of 13 acres.
Right.
Now, I'm not sure if this is for Joe or Rebecca, but will that be essentially done at the annual review?
Right.
So February?
Yes, we would like to do the annual review in February. So that would be done at Planning Commission and then come before you all. I just want to make sure that that's not lost in translation because we have so few acres designated for that use.
And I know Mr. Flowers requested the motion perhaps not include the 13-acre requirement. That's an internal issue. Is there any action needed from the council to trigger that? So would we need a third motion to instruct the planning director to reallocate 13? Or what's the vehicle that reallocation process happens in?
It can be done in that manner, and maybe I misunderstood, but I think Mr. Flowers' primary concern, and he can address it if I get this wrong, is just to make it clear that reallocation under the comprehensive plan of an additional 13 to 15 acres to substitute this puts no obligation upon his client.
That's not his issue.
Right.
That's our
that
issue.
is internal and administrative only.
Right.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and what I didn't want to make a motion like to amend it and include it where it would slow him down until we allocated.
The main thing is that these track together so that you guys approve an amendment, whether it is with or without the condition that the comprehensive plan be amended to reallocate that 13 to 15 acres, and that there be a rezone contemporaneously tonight.
Sure.
So that they can move forward.
Right.
And so Ms. Blaine has requested, as the planning commission did, that that be addressed in two separate motions. One being to address the amendment of the comprehensive plan, and the second motion being to address the rezoning classification.
And does our motion tonight need to go that granular in regard to the 13 acres, or just that we're amending the?
That's certainly up to
comprehensive
you, but
plan?
it's my understanding that that is the planning department's recommendation, that it include.
Okay.
And really, that's just directive.
Sure.
To the planning commission as they sit down at that level at the amendment process to identify that 13 to 15 acres to bring back before this commission. But it has no bearing on Cedar Ridge project.
Right.
As long as the amendment to this 13 acres is approved.
Right. Yep. Good. Yes, sir.
If the city, the planning commission didn't put that, if the city does put that, we would request that not place any requirement or delay on our plan. And I think that's the understanding.
Yeah.
Right, oh, yeah, I think we're good on that. Yep. Anybody else got any questions or concerns, or? No? Anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we amend the 2040 comprehensive plan to change this plot of land from A1 to R1, and subsequently direct the planning director to make a recommendation on reallocating 13 to 15 acres to R3. Which is what we, correct? Is that above?
And Rebecca, that would be one. Previously designated R1 land to R3, correct? Or are you not putting that on there?
Yes, that is correct.
Does that make sense?
You mean start over? Or?
Does that motion cover both?
No, I think we can
bases?
make sure we've got it clear.
And then do we need to include in the motion that that allocation does not encumber?
I think for clarity that makes a lot of sense.
Okay. Let me start over and we'll see if we can get it right.
Well, yeah, that's
Yeah,
a good,
does it need-
that's a good point, good
Does it need
point.
to be R1 to R3 or just anything to R3?
Just anything to R3.
No, that's something that we will discuss at the February meeting, and then of course it would come before you all for approval. So we're not saying where that is, but we just want to make sure that that's kind of on the agenda for February, and that we don't lose the multifamily somewhere else within the city limits.
So we don't want to specify, I guess we can if we want to, but you wouldn't recommend specifying where that 13 acres comes from. There just needs to be 13.49 acres to R3.
So I would say if we could reallocate 13 to 15 acres for the use of high-density residential somewhere else within city limits, and then that doesn't limit us to where that may be.
So are you offering to amend his motion?
I don't think I ever got it. I'll just restart. How about that?
Okay, let's do that.
All right,
Let's
I'll
do
make a
that.
motion that we amend the 2040 comprehensive plan to change this plat designated A1 to R1, and that we direct the planning director to bring a recommendation to reallocate 13 to 15 acres to R3, and that subsequently that recommendation does not encumber or delay the development of this land.
I think, I just want to clarify, because you mentioned amending the 2040 comp plan from A1 to R1, but the comp plan calls for this is R3, so it would be amending the comp plan from R3 to R1.
You want to just hand me that and I'll read it?
I believe that you intended, and you can agree or disagree, that your motion was to amend the 2040 comprehensive
I will
plan
agree.
to change this particular tract of land from
R3 to R1 in the
R1,
comp plan, correct, yes.
and then to direct the planning commission to reallocate 13 to 15 acres within city limits to R3 at their annual review.
Correct.
And that this particular action by the commission places no duty or responsibility upon the developer of this particular parcel of property.
I agree.
I'll second that.
That's a mouthful, isn't it?
I got it.
If you're going to second it, you got to be able to say it.
Okay, so are you, You gonna read to us?
What is listed in the
Okay.
ordinance title is the rezone, which will need to be read into the record, but this
Okay.
motion would be separate from that and would not be required to be read into the record.
Okay, very good. So, we don't need to read all that?
There's a motion and a second. If there's any further discussion, you can have that now or you can call the question.
Okay, I say we call the question unless you guys want to talk some more. There we go. Okay, passes 7-0. Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor, now would
Yes, sir.
be the time to discuss the rezone.
Okay.
It's been requested as well and that is the A1 to
Okay.
R1.
Okay, so that's what the gentleman is asking for then. Okay.
I'll make a motion, we rezone from A1 to R1.
Okay. All righty. So we have a, motion and a second, so now you read this.
And we've already done the public hearing.
Okay. Yes.
And I would just, if you would make sure, since we've kind of broken this up, that there's no one else that would have anything to say.
Okay, no, I'd be glad to do that. Is there anybody else that would like to say for or against on this?
With regard to a rezone.
With regard to the rezone. You have a question, I can tell.
A1 to R1, is that what you said?
Yeah, because we omit, my understanding, our rezones need to match the comp plan. Change the
Because
comp
that was
plan.
A1 over there. If I remember right, yeah. 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 Okay, was there anybody else that wanted to speak? So seeing none, we'll close the public hearing then.
And then we would need, and it was really closed before, so I just wanted to make
Right.
sure, since it was somewhat confusing, that there was.
Right, there you go. Well, absolutely. Okay, so I think we're good with that.
Motion and a second on the floor.
Got a motion and a second, so do we
And
need
if there's no further discussion, I can read the ordinance title into the record, Mr. Mayor.
All righty, thank you.
An ordinance concerning the zoning classification of the following described property located within the corporate limits of the city of Shawnee, Potawatomi County, Oklahoma, to wit, a tract of land lying in the east half of the southwest quarter of the northwest quarter of Section 5, Township 10, North Range 4 East of the Indian Meridian, Potawatomi County, Oklahoma, and further described within the ordinance. From zoning classification A1, Rural Agricultural District, to R1, Single Family Residential District, and amending the official zoning map of the city of Shawnee accordingly.
Okey-doke. I guess we are good to go then. So we have a motion and a second. Let's vote. And that passes 7-0. Very good. Thank you, everybody, for all the discussion. Item 12, consideration statements or qualifications for professional services. And this is Seth is coming. All righty. Good to see you, Seth.
Good to see you. Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners. This agenda item was one of the first things that Chance mentioned to me when I came on board as a city engineer, so I'm excited to have it in front of you guys. Also, I know there's three kind of different items, but they're all kind of interrelated, so I'll kind of give my spiel, and if you guys have any questions about one of the individual projects, feel free to ask. As some of you are aware, in 2017, the city was awarded a dollar-for-dollar Avitas Foundation grant for some sidewalk construction. That grant money has not yet been fully utilized, and it actually has a sunset date for June of 2022. So with that in mind, staff put together a list of projects that would have a high impact in reaching the goals identified within the Shawnee Comprehensive Plan and the Safe Routes to School Master Plan that was adopted in 2019. And in September, we issued an RFQ for professional services for 5 sidewalk projects. That RFQ closed in October, and we received 13 statement of qualifications from different firms, both in-state and out-of-state firms. So we had a good response. We've reviewed the SOQs, shortlisted and interviewed the top 5 respondents. And now I'm coming to you guys to ask for permission to begin the negotiation process for contracts on the first 3 sidewalk projects. These first 3 projects we feel like are the highest priority projects we have. And also I would mention that we're requesting permission to negotiate with 3 separate engineering firms rather than award all 3 to one. And we did that because with the timeline we're looking at, it's a fairly aggressive timeline when you talk about doing the entire design, bidding it out, going to construction, and then completing construction. And so we didn't want to bog down a single firm with 3 different projects. And in an effort to keep their capacity good, we went ahead and thought we would award to 3 different ones. So, and then just one more thing, a reminder that these contracts will actually come back before you guys for approval when we have a set contract and a set number. So this is just permission to go to them and begin that negotiation process and really scope these projects from a design perspective. So there's not a number or a bid here tonight. And with that, I would open it up to any questions that you guys might have. Just so for the record, we're asking for Independence Street from Kickapoo to Harrison to begin negotiation with CEC. Highland from Harrison to Bryan. For this project, we'd like to begin services with Craft and Toll, and then Kickapoo from I-40 to MacArthur with Olson. So with that, I would answer any questions that you guys
Question,
have.
Mr. Mayor. What's the width of these sidewalks on these corridors?
So it will largely vary. So for example, on Kickapoo Street, that corridor is defined really with retaining walls and stuff like that. So we're going to go in and kind of on a case-by-case basis. Largely, they're going to be 5-foot sidewalks, but we have had conversations on the Highland Street project about potentially doing that like an extension of the Bryan Street Trail down Highland, because it does tie into the Bryan Street Trail. So in that one, versus doing 2 sidewalks on either side, 5 foot, we've discussed doing a 10-foot more trail-like side on one side. So it would be kind of a case-by-case basis, but we can kind of talk about that in detail once we have the scopes and the contracts put together when we come back before you, if you'd like.
I was just curious. I've driven down a couple of those now in mind with sidewalks on both sides.
Yes.
And I know some of those places are almost impossible to do sidewalks. I know they find a way.
Right.
I was curious if some have to narrow down.
Yeah.
Or if.
And that's something that we want to look at when we're scoping these things, is if we just need to do sidewalk on one side, because it's going to be cost prohibitive for us to do both, and we're able to get more mileage for, bang for our buck, we may go to where we just do one side. Kind of depends on a case-by-case basis.
So at this point, we don't even know that then, whether it be both sides or one side? Or?
I mean, Kickapoo Street's going to be both sides, because we're doing infill and commercial areas there. I think for Highland, it's likely we're going to make an effort to do one side of a trail. And then for Independence, that's kind of up in the air. We may do one or both. It kind of depends on what the railroad will allow us to do with that crossing.
Yeah. What other questions you guys got? No other questions?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, Bob. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm just curious on number 5 on the future ones. Farrell, Harrison Street from Beard to Highland.
Say that again.
Well, it says.
Yeah, it's Farrell. Farrell goes around the corner and turns into Harrison.
Yeah, it turns. Yeah, there we go. So it's making the bend.
From.
Yeah.
From Highland and Main, or from.
Paralleling around this way. Okay.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yeah.
So I was struggling with Beard to Highland. I know that intersection. Those streets cross. Yeah, those streets cross. This way.
That's on the curve.
Yeah.
Yep.
Other end of that.
Any other questions?
I'll continue with my motion to move forward on professional services and hiring and moving forward with the project.
My second.
And Travis. Okay, we have a motion and a second, so let's call the question. All righty, motion passes 7-0. So we're going to recess City Commission meeting to convene Shawnee Airport Authority and Shawnee Municipal Authority. Power of the chair. That's what I have on mine, but that doesn't sound right. 13. There we go. Thank you. That'd be better. That makes more sense. Consider and take action with respect to a resolution.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor. We need to recess to the Airport Authority first, and then to the Municipal Authority.
So that
come
is
back to item 13.
that is right then.
Yep.
Okay. There we go. We're thinking too much. Okay, so we will recess city commission meeting to convene Shawnee Airport Authority and Shawnee Municipal Authority by power of the chair. So we'll reconvene city commission meeting. So item 13, consider and take action with respect to resolution of the Board of Commissioners for the City of Shawnee, Oklahoma, the city approving action taken by Shawnee Municipal Authority, the authority authorizing issuance, sale, and delivery of the Clean Water SRF promissory note to the Oklahoma Water Resources Board, ratifying and confirming a lease agreement, an operation and maintenance contract as amended, whereby the city leases its water and sanitary sewer systems to the authority and containing other provisions related thereto. So should have Brad. Is that right? Yes, sir.
I believe after you called the airport authority meeting to order, you may have inadvertently skipped to the municipal authority agenda. The airport authority just has consent agenda, new business, and the consideration of adjournment.
I think it's 2 pages past where you're
Two pages past where I'm at.
Yeah.
Okay, so there we go.
There you go.
There
Thank
we
you.
go. Now I'm on the right page. Okay, so consider the approval of consent agenda. This for the airport authority.
So moved.
So moved. Darren.
Second.
And that was Daniel, right? All righty, so we have a motion and a second. And thank you, Mr. City Attorney, for getting me on the right page. All righty, any new business? Or, whoop, I'm sorry, we've got all 7 votes, and this passes 7-0. All righty. New business?
No new business, Mr.
No
Mayor.
new business, so we are adjourned. So do we need to go back, or?
We'll go forward to the municipal
authority.
Yes,
Okay, that makes sense. All right, so, item 1, consider approval for consent agenda.
Make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
That was Daniel.
A second.
And Mark. Okay, very good. So we have a motion and a second. Bobby, I don't think it took yours. Yeah, yours didn't go through.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Thank you.
I just want to make sure there wasn't something you need to look at. Okay, so that passes 7-0. Item 2, consideration of a budget amendment for the Shawnee Municipal Authority Fund 501 to adjust budget for paperless work order and WMS system changes in payroll and contracted services. And there's Ashley.
Yes, so this is just a mid-year update. It covers a contract for a paperless work order system and a WIM system, which I've been informed has to do with DEQ reporting. Apparently we're doing it very manually in Excel now, and this will allow us to do it more efficiently with the software. It also includes some changes in payroll and other contracted services, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Anybody got questions?
I make a motion, we approve the amendment.
All right, Daniel. We have a motion.
Second.
Second by Darren. All right, we have a motion and a second, so let's call the question. And that motion passes 7-0. Item 3, consider and take action with respect to a resolution of the Shawnee Municipal Authority, the authority approving and authorizing a clean water SRF loan from the Oklahoma Water Resources Board in the total aggregate principal amount of $12 million, approving the issuance of a promissory note in the amount in the total aggregate principal amount of $12 million secured by a pledge of revenues and authorizing its execution, approving and authorizing the execution of a loan agreement for clean water SRF loan, designating a local trustee and approving and authorizing the execution of a trust agreement, approving and authorizing the execution of a security agreement, ratifying and confirming a lease agreement, an operation and maintenance contract, and authorizing payment of fees and expenses and containing other provisions related thereto. So, Ashley, are you coming instead of Brad? Okay, it says on here, Brad, that.
So this is in addition to the financing that we did about probably a year and a half ago for the wastewater treatment plan. It's an additional $12 million. We had some updated plans for our wastewater treatment plant, and we decided to go with something that would make our plants more efficient, also prepare us for the future, and save us money in the long run. So that is where this request comes in. With those updates, it did increase our cost a little bit more up front, but in the end, we will be saving more money. We expect we will be switching from 2 plants to 1 plant, and we fully expect to see up to $1.2 million in operational savings a year once it's up and running. And that's just one of the many things. It's also going to help prepare us for future growth, so that when we do reach that size of a bigger city, we will be able to more easily accommodate those individuals. But I'm happy to answer any financial questions you have. Oh, and the interest rate will be 1.65%. And we are able to, the debt service we have asked the Public Finance Law Group to help us look at both the legal side, and they also do some financial analysis, and we've both looked at them, and it looks like we will be good in regard to finances. So I can help with the finance questions, and Brad and Chance can help with any technical questions about the plant itself.
Okay, I know you made a statement. I just want everybody to hear the answer, that we'd pay a little more up front, but this pays itself off in, I think, a fairly short period of time, considering the length of this project's going to last us.
Yes. So the plan itself, they're saying, will last at least 40 years, and they're saying up to $1.2 million in savings. So it definitely will, in the long run, pay off.
Right. And the amount of debt we're going to incur, we're able to handle that. No
yes. So since we were able to adjust our water and sewer rates and we were able to go ahead and prepare for these types of changes, even in the past with the meter maintenance fee, we are in a good spot to be able to afford to do these upgrades to help the citizens.
Okay. And I think I heard correctly, you said this ought to have us good for like 40 years. Is that's the plan? So
that's correct, Mr. Mayor. It's assuming we don't have some unprecedented growth that would require us to add additional capacity to our plant.
Right.
Yeah. And I think it is important to note and really hammer is we're converting from right now we operate 2 wastewater plants. Right. One on the south side of town, which is a 1940s model, and one on the north side of town, which is a newer 1970s model. And with these updates, the idea is, while it is slightly more capital investment up front, the long-term sustainability of our plants, we'll be replacing not 2 but 1 plants, in the long-time future. So the idea is to save us on those incremental operational costs annually that will eventually, pay for itself.
Okay. Gentlemen, you got any questions or anything we need to talk through? Anybody want to make a motion, or? I think that'd be the next. That'd be okay. So Travis has the motion.
I'll second.
Second by Mark. Okay. So at this point, I think you're up.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion to approve a resolution of the Shawnee Municipal Authority approving and authorizing clean water SRF loan from the Oklahoma Water Resources Board in the total aggregate principal amount of $12 million. approving the issuance of a promissory note in the total aggregate principal amount of $12 million, secured by a pledge of revenues and authorizing its execution, approving and authorizing the execution of a loan agreement for clean water SRF loan, designating a local trustee and approving and authorizing the execution of a trust agreement, approving and authorizing the execution of a security agreement, ratifying and confirming a lease agreement and operation maintenance contract as amended, approving various covenants, approving and authorizing payment of fees and expenses, and containing other provisions relating thereto.
Alrighty, thank you, sir. So we have a motion and a second. We'll call the question. And that motion passes 7-0. Thank you very much. Any new business?
No new business, Mr. Mayor.
So then we are adjourned and we go back a few pages.
We'll go back to item 13 on the
Back where I started reading a while ago. There we go. All right, so we reconvene City Commission meeting. Item 13, consider and take action with respect to a resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the City of Shawnee, Oklahoma, the city approving action taken by the Shawnee Municipal Authority, the authority authorizing issuance, sale, and delivery of its clean water SRF promissory note to the Oklahoma Water Resources Board, and ratifying and confirming a lease agreement and operation and maintenance contract as amended, whereby the city leases its water, sanitary sewer systems to the authority and containing all other provisions related thereto. So is Brad going to come talk to us, or?
Mr. Mayor, this is simply a resolution on the
Right.
city
the
to ratify the decision made in item 3 on the municipal authority agenda.
Right, so that's just action related to what we just did then. Any questions? I have a motion.
I'll make a motion, we ratify.
Daniel,
I'll second.
and second by Bob. All righty. So, Mr. Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion to approve a resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the City of Shawnee, Oklahoma, approving action taken by the Shawnee Municipal Authority, authorizing issuance, sale, and delivery of its clean water SRF promissory note to the Oklahoma Water Resources Board, ratifying and confirming a lease agreement and operation and maintenance contract as amended, whereby the city leased its water and sanitary sewer system to the authority, and containing other provisions related thereto.
All righty, thank you, sir. So we have a motion and a second. We'll call the question. And that motion passes 7-0. So item 14 is new business.
No new business?
No new business. Commissioners' comments. Benny, you want to start down here end? Give you first shot.
I don't believe I have any comments to make. We've pretty well hashed everything out tonight.
There's a lot of talk tonight. That's good.
You know, the water and sewer are probably two of the most critical things as a city we need, along with fire and police. So I think this will put us in real good shape for my kids and my grandkids here locally. So I'm excited about it. It's a big number, but I think it will definitely make it streamlined, makes it a lot more efficient. That's all I got.
Yeah, just what Mark said, it's nothing that people see until they turn their faucet on or flush their toilet, and it has to work. So, and it costs quite a bit to get us there, but this is good for us long term. I was glad to see Shawnee forward with their plan to disperse some of those funds, and I hope, I really hope it helps the businesses that need it, and I hope the ones that need it get applied, and that works as it's intended. We need to all look out for our neighbors.
No, I just also would like to thank the county for its part in being intentional about putting its monies back in to help the amazing small businesses, not just of Shawnee, but the total surrounding area, which we talked about over and over again about how that all of these small businesses are really, really hurting, and the fact that we're being intentional about building a plan to and relieve as much of this pain as we can and help them to move forward so that when we can, hopefully very soon in 2021, get back to what we would consider normal, that they are ready to go and don't have a lag and miss those opportunities. Yep. And I too think this is a very, very excellent plan as far as how they go about finding applicants and qualifying them to use this money to the best of our abilities.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, I'd like to first address Mr. Robb's questions. I think the Shawnee Forward questions have been answered through that presentation. On SEFF, tell me what's Shawnee stock?
Was Shawnee stock, well, and I was actually going to talk about that, but I'll answer it right now,
Okay.
if you don't mind. Shawnee stock, Seth puts on, it's called monthly block parties downtown. So basically they were always focused around Celebration of Life Park. Last year, the date happened to coincide with the 50th anniversary of Woodstock. So the idea was we would just put a name on it and call it Shawnee Stock. So we had bands come play Woodstock era music. That was the only time we ever made a requirement on people that you have to play this. So everybody dressed up in their old hippie clothes and they played Woodstock music. It was a lot of fun. So it seems like that's the intent, is to do that every August at the downtown block party. But it was just a monthly downtown block party that happened to have a theme that got big. There was quite a few folks there last year. And of course, this year the numbers, I imagine, were quite a bit lower because of just the present situation.
Okay, well, you'll probably address more, but I wanted to just address that question. And also, there's mention of a resignation of a member of the city commission. Was that an issue? Was that an issue why there was or was not action taken? What was the resignation of a commission board member?
I think what's being alluded to there is the fact that for a few years I was on the CEF board, but I was never involved in their contractor finances or anything like that in relation to the city. So I resigned from that board
as mayor
a few months ago.
As mayor,
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm
just trying to get clarification.
That's all fair questions. There's nothing to hide.
Sure.
there.
Okay. And on Spectra, the city manager has sent me a copy of the contract, which was, of course, done by the previous commission. And he sent that to me on Friday, and I've read it. I've tried to talk to several community leaders as well as Expo board members, members of the trust, trying to get educated and understand. So I don't have an opinion. I know there's a lot of questions that have been brought to me, and I'm trying to get a real handle on what their concerns are and what the right answers are. Haven't gotten there, but I'm working on it. So I'm going to continue. I think it's a big issue. And one more thing on Ken Stafford's issues. I also have not ever seen the comprehensive plan, so I'd like to get a copy of the comprehensive plan so that I can refer back to the items that he specifically talks about that were of concern, and then see if we can find out how he fell through the cracks and what happened as far as his issue. And finally, I was excited to see in the Daily Oklahoman on Saturday that the J.C. Penney building was going to be occupied by, Mathis Brothers, Sleep Center.
Yeah, and Ashley Store and Sleep Center.
And Ashley Furniture, and then there was one more part of them, Sleep Center, Ashley Furniture, and Lazy Boy.
Yeah.
I thought that was really good news for that huge vacant operation that it's, so anyway, that was great news for Shawnee, and I was really excited and hoping we hear good things continuing, so thank you.
Yeah, I was really excited when we saw the agenda tonight because I'm a process guy, and I think some of the things we've done tonight set us up with processes that help us grow. My compliments to the planning commission, the planning department, because they were very responsive as we got a plan in place to amend the comprehensive plan. I think that allows us to be responsive to citizens' needs and developers' needs, and a clear process that everyone can follow and understand. So I was really excited about that. Ashley, you and Chance did a great job putting together the deal on the water treatment plant. I think that's a really big deal for our community. I know it's a large number, but the fact that we're now really positioned for growth really well, we're going to save $1 million in operating costs, or $750,000 to 1.2, depending on how it goes. It's a really good investment at a really good interest rate, and the fact that we find ourselves at this kind of interesting period of time, but we're financially healthy enough to take advantage of opportunities like this, I think really prepares us for a good future, and so I'm really excited about that. I'm very hopeful that this program with Shawnee Forward can help a lot of people here in our community, because the businesses are so important, because they aren't just businesses, they're people, they're families, they're our neighbors and friends, and I appreciate all of you guys up here that we can kind of hash through it and figure out the best way forward. I had on my list too congratulations to the people at the mall that I know would have worked hard for that deal. That's a big deal. JCPenney, what could have been a downer, we're bringing in another set of great brands here into our community to provide great options for people. So I thought those were really good. I thought there was a lot on this agenda tonight that was really good for our future. Of course, the rodeo is such a staple event, and to be able to support that, I think, was good. I don't have a lot of comments, as I'm fairly new, but just a couple of things that are my understanding on comments that were made earlier. Seth would not be subject to the Open Meetings Act because they're not a government agency. So they're not subject to the Open Meetings Act. They're just a nonprofit. So the other thing on Spectra, maybe it's, I guess, up for debate, but as we approved that at the last meeting, I actually like it because it gives us flexibility in that if Spectra had to come to us and ask for more budget or to amend the contract because they don't have enough people to get the job done, I'd rather us hire employees that now have the flexibility. If we just given Spectra more money or made an amendment to that contract, those employees couldn't be helping with cleanup of debris or any other place we need. So I like the flexibility personally for us to be able to make changes like that. So that's all I got, but a lot of good stuff tonight, and I appreciate all you gentlemen.
Very good, thank you, sir. I agree, a lot of good stuff tonight. One thing I want to touch on is the hospital, the proclamation that we made tonight for the hospital. Those folks are working their tail ends off right now. I can't imagine what they're going through, actually, not just here in Shawnee, but everywhere here in the state. As Angie said tonight, they are full. That's a scary thing. I mean, any of us could end up in the hospital for any number of reasons. It doesn't have to be COVID-19, but they don't have a room for us right now. So there's no telling where they're going to send you. And if you had to go to the hospital, they may send you hundreds of miles away, and your family's not going to be able to come with you. I mean, that's just a horrible thing we're going through. So please do our part to make their job easier. Wear your mask, wash your hands, stay separated from folks. I appreciate what staff did in here tonight to help with that. And if you know you're sick, stay home. We've been told that for months and months. We need to step up and do our part so that they can do their part with us. Other things I want to talk about, we had the issue come up at 39th Street and the zoning change there. That was a thing that came before the commission a few months ago. We heard the input of the people, and I think we acted in accordance to what folks told us wanted to be done over there. To me, it makes perfect sense. And for government, that happened pretty fast. We didn't have a procedure in place. Rebecca and her team got that done very quickly for us, and I appreciate that very much. And tonight we approved change that I think makes a lot of sense. Ken came up and talked, and I understand some of his frustrations. In fact, he met personally with me and with Chance and talked about really the notification process more than anything. and we kind of understand where he's coming from, and we committed to him that we were going to do a better job of that, and I know that we're working to address that. Whether or not we vote to make the changes he wants, that's another issue, but the notification, I mean, I kind of get what he's saying, and we've committed to him that we're going to do a better job of that. The water treatment thing that we talked about tonight, it is a lot of money, but like Darren said, you know, everybody takes that for granted until it doesn't work, you know. So this ought to set us up for the next 40 years, which is going to outlive most of us sitting up here, some of the younger guys, hopefully not. But I think it gets us in a good position. The other thing I want to say about that is we had a plan developed, and we were kind of headed down that way, and staff looked at that and said, you know, I bet there's a better way. And, you know, they researched it and found a better way. And not only is it a better way to do it, but it takes our money as taxpayers, and it invests it better over a long period of time. So thank you, staff, for doing that. Really appreciate the hard work. As far as the stuff that Rob brought up to us, Shawnee forward, I agree with what Daniel said. I think that stuff was addressed, and that's one of the hazards, I think, of we have the input first, and probably if that had been come later, I think that would have been apparent. So I think all that was addressed pretty well. As far as theft, my understanding from the attorney that put the bylaws together when I was part of that organization, they were not subject to Open Meeting Act. And as far as the money and the contracts with the city, I stayed very clear of that because of my involvement here. So I would not have any part of that. As I said, Shawnee Stock was just one of their monthly block parties. That one just happened to coincide with a kind of a fun anniversary, so they, monopolized or took advantage of that, and just made kind of a fun name out of it. So, and as far as was the contract abruptly changed after no, I mean, it had absolutely nothing to do that. And Rob, if you want to come talk to me about any of this, just holler at me. I'm not a hard person to talk with, and I'm not a difficult person to sit down and meet with. I do that with folks all the time. Spectra, city staff found a better way to spend our money. We could have hired a couple of folks out there, but they hired folks that we will have access to them and can move them around town as we need it. So I think they just made a good call on how to spend our money, and that's all that was. So I don't really have anything else. So with that, I guess we stand adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for all your time tonight. Appreciate seeing everybody. Everybody stay safe.